And the sixth edition of the Dynasty podcast. We have me, we have Ricky, and special guest Nick. How's Nick doing today? Birthday boy Nick in the house.
I'm doing really well, boys. It's great to hear from you. I'm happy to be on here. You guys have done this and you've taken this to another level. When we started these podcasts late, I think midsummer, we started these podcasts and, you know, we kind of tapered off a little bit there. And then you guys stepped up to the plate and you just took it and ran with it. And it evolved into something far better than what we had previously had, which was really awesome. You
Yeah,
know,
That's all Frank.
well, we definitely had our struggles at first, but that's with anything new. But I think we finally, starting to perfect this formula a little bit. So we have so much fun putting these videos out, and we love that everyone just immediately listens to it. Like last night, I had like 26 views on the video we put out like in an hour. So it's awesome to see that people here like wait for this stuff. So it's fun in that regard too.
right.
Nope,
And
we're glad to do it. Yeah, I know there like season 2 was a little bit of a lull in terms of stuff, so we wanted to at least generate conversation again, and because this is a fun dynasty, man. You guys started it up for us.
Oh, yeah. And that actually, like I was saying it when we started this before we went live. I was telling these two about this to anyone who's listening or will be listening. Initially, it was Nathan that brainstormed this whole thing, and then he was going to have his brother Ian, me in it, Josh McMahon, then some of our friends and the people we knew, and we were figuring we'd get 8 to maybe a dozen or maybe a little bit more people tops. And then, once I got in there, I just started adding bunches of people. And then they got Rick Herculini, and then he started adding a bunch of people. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. And it's evolved into something like this, which I didn't even conceive of it from the start. But once it got up to 16 to 18, I'm like, holy hell, this thing's going to really fly. We're going to get 32. And ultimately we did. Now we're back down at 29. Seems kind of weird that we've been stuck there. We have 3 openings, and I know those openings aren't, we can't really fill them now because it wouldn't be right during the season, unless people voted or they wanted to do it or they wanted more competition. But I can understand if somebody didn't, like they feel like they can have a start at CFP or something, and you add somebody new and they get knocked off and it could ruin all that. So, but this dynasty and the way we've done and what you guys have set up here with this has really made this. I mean, it's been extra special, and it's because of you guys. You guys are every bit as important as additional content drivers to the dynasty as even us as creators and managers of, we're on the managerial side and kind of try to juggle everything and do what's best for the large group as a whole, such as not going to Heisman when you have like 25 people that would be losing a lot of games, and you have other
Yeah.
people that kind of know how to pass the ball and game the system and get Heisman stats. And that was one of the things I wanted to get rid of was that FCS game, where people are running up 100 and some points, if possible, scrapping those FCS games and just playing all, FBS games.
Yeah, no,
Nope, love that.
I love that idea too. I mean, there's no reason to go out and put up 140 points against a team. Like that's not even fun after like 10 minutes, in my opinion, of doing it.
Yeah, and you win a Heisman in one game. You know what I mean? You win a
Yeah,
Heisman in one game.
pretty
So
much.
ridiculous.
Yeah. So, we had Ian in yesterday. We talked all about the drama and all that stuff. We didn't really get into the games of week 8 yet. So that's why we have you here today to talk about some games and talk some recruiting and make some picks. So
Wonderful.
let's just jump right into your conference here, ACC. We had let's see, Virginia Tech and Clemson. We talked a little bit about this yesterday and how Bobby was hanging a little bit with them, and then Virginia Tech kind of blew him away there at the end with the 7 interceptions. Um,
You
but
want me to jump in on that,
whatever you want, yeah. This is your conference, so whatever
Frank?
insight you have on it.
Or is that Ricky?
Oh, this is me.
I don't know if anybody, I can't hear from your end right now.
Oh,
And this just happened to us a couple of minutes ago, but I don't know.
lost
Maybe
you
you
for
can
a
hear me.
second.
And if you can, I'm just going to keep talking until I hear one of you guys say something.
Sounds
But
good.
that
Keep
game
talking.
between Virginia Tech and Miami, which would have been DJ and Bobby, The first year they had when Bobby won by 10, he was down 35-14 in the first half. And, DJ just got a little bit out ahead of himself, and he was going for more and more points. About 2 minutes to go in the first half, and he threw a pile of picks. And the next thing you know, it was like 35-28 or something like that at the half. And then Bobby ended up pulling off the win. And I think that game ended up like it was like 51-41 or something to that effect, somewhere around in there. And then, yeah, that was a great. I can hear you now. I can hear some feedback. So that's
Perfect.
good.
No, I mean, this is just Virginia Tech being Virginia Tech now. I'm glad you brought in his like history of, it's obvious he's always been a passer first, and he's now just limiting those interceptions. And look at what he's doing now. Blowout every week. He is one of the top contenders, if not the top contender in the dynasty, right?
Yeah.
So no shade to Bobby for losing this one.
I would agree with that. I played him the first year. It was awesome. I played him at Virginia Tech, and I beat him 21-14. I had an interception at the end. I don't know how I held him 14 points. Ran it back to the half-yard line. The interception got tackled, ran out the clock, won 21-14. But he's at the time he had like 58.5 points a game, 591 yards passing. I looked up the stats prior to playing him, and that's when I averaged it out over everything that he played, even including his simulation game against Syracuse or whatever that he had a forced loss in because he had a timeout when he was behind against the computer, or he'd have probably been in the CFP the first year. But yeah, he's a fantastic player. He can really throw the ball. He really utilizes the entire field. Like he throws to the flats. He throws, over the middle. He throws deep. He throws in the outs. He's got post patterns, and he's really good. And he knows when to scramble. He knows when to run. He mixes it up well. He utilizes his backs out of the backfield. And he's really a nightmare to stop. I mean, I think he's the best passer in the dynasty.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
From
You guys there?
from what I've seen from Ricky, and then what I've seen from Virginia Tech, I'd say 1 and 2 in terms of the passing attacks so far this season. And I don't know what's happening with Nick here. Sometimes we lose him, sometimes we have him. So just bear with us. It's just
I got you. I'm in there now.
okay. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I'm
what's
in there
going
now.
on. Not sure, maybe just connection or
Yeah.
something, but it's all good.
No,
I'm going to
all
try
we basically said is
relocating here in my house. I'm going to try relocating, but go ahead, keep going.
No, yeah. So
sounds
I mean, that's
good.
it. We'll just move on to the next game, Notre Dame, Florida State. We talked about it again. This is one Notre Dame I thought would win, but Ian pulled out an upset in my eyes.
Yep, and like Ian was saying yesterday, he basically needed this win to sort of, I wouldn't say he needed to win it per se in terms of his playoff aspirations, but this at least gives him a much clearer path. He has some window of opportunity for losing now. And, Notre Dame, they lost this game, they're still be looking pretty here.
Yeah, I mean, this loss doesn't really mean much for him in my
Because Florida
eyes.
State still has Clemson, of course, then, Virginia Tech if they get to that point. So this was a game to sort of stabilize their season for what's coming up.
Yeah, it's a good way to
So it was a
put it.
good win by Ian. This was a back and forth game.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I caught like from the second quarter on, and it was good. Those two they play, they're obviously brothers, and it's just really interesting because there's like an 8.5 year gap between them, Ian being the younger, and then when they play, it's usually a pretty good game. I think they just have an understanding of what the other one likes to do, and it makes the games like highly competitive, between those two.
Yeah, that's what Ian said. He said he hates playing Nate. He said he'd rather play anybody else in the dynasty
Yeah.
other than him. So we'll move out of the ACC. We'll go to the smallest conference as the Big 12. With only a couple remaining users left. Kansas is probably the top dog in it now. After the boot.
Well,
Prime.
one of.
Yeah, but I would say they are probably the one. Or 1A or Arizona 1B.
1A and 1B for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, so I was listening to the part with you and Ian yesterday, and where you guys were talking about like people that were under talked about, and you guys said Virginia Tech, and I agree with that. But here's my answer to that question. Look at what this Kansas did to TCU. TCU is a very good user. They lost 69-28 to Kansas. Kansas is at worst a top 4 player this year, considering their schedule, what they've been doing with. I mean, he's been very efficient passing the ball, and I know if you look at the stats, you look at the way he plays those games, he generates a lot of pressure, forces his opponent into a lot of missed throws. Like that game with West Virginia could have been easily a back and forth game. West Virginia is really good offensively, but before the game even started, it was like 28-0. So I think we have to give props to Kansas here,
Yeah.
and a lot of eyeballs were always on Arizona just because they had marquee matchups early this year. Colorado's always in the headline for one, but Kansas I feel like has just been slipping through the cracks, and that's another impressive win by them.
Yeah, every time I see Kansas, they're always putting up like 50 plus. So that's a good
I'll
take.
tell you what, I think that he's one of the very top players in the whole thing. I think the only reason why it's kind of been overshadowed is because, when he started out as Kansas, they only had the quarterback and the tailback and a couple other players. I think that Kobe Bryant, that corner, I don't know if he was the same Kobe Bryant that played for Cincinnati in 2021 with Sauce Gardner when they made the CFP and lost to Alabama like 24-7 or 24-6 or whatever it was.
Sure.
But that, I think it was just kind of overshadowed because he's probably good at these. He's really good with the sticks, and you can tell the guys that have either played Madden or play more now, and and put a lot of time and energy into it. I prefer to go the route where I go heavy on the recruiting and then building the roster and developing the guys on the roster, and then I just try to scheme and be competitive that way because I don't play any other time other than when I get on. My game is scheduled. I haven't done anything other than play in this dynasty and recruit in this dynasty since probably mid-August.
Yeah,
So that's where I'm at.
same with me too. I don't. I've tried offline dynasties and I just don't find it as fun. So I just after week 1 or 2, I'm done. So this
As
is
someone that used to be like exclusively offline franchise mode in Madden or offline Dynasty, the NCAA games from decades ago, it no longer has the same luster as Dynasty. That's for sure.
right. Yeah, it's definitely lost its shine.
No, I started private one with Pitt around August 8th or something. Or that's the last time I logged on and did it.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's just this and that's it. I agree with you. It's like exhibition, even playing one of us in exhibition, even though we know each other, that's still not as like, you know, attractive to me because it just doesn't seem to have any teeth. Like these dynasties, they have teeth, and you just play people by chance usually. You know what I mean? And it just makes it really exciting. You get all these different matchups, you know, and you kind of want a little bit of the unknown. You know what I mean? You don't want to be getting on
Right.
playing each other too much on exhibition, and then it's like you kind of get a feel of who's a little bit better or who's a good bit better. And this way here, it's like it just kind of gets you by surprise, and that's what I like about this. And it's like you said, this whole thing, it gives it its teeth. You get in dynasty mode, you get people and you start to know, and you have like a working friendship with through all this stuff. And then the next thing you know, it's like these games. I mean, it's fun as can be.
Yeah, like building the rivalries, like within your conference is fun. Like me talking crap with the Jeremita brothers, and like we find that fun, and and it's all because of this dynasty, and I thoroughly enjoy all the smack talk and stuff to a point, and
And
Do you know how I
like
met
what?
him?
how
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no,
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Nick.
I met Mike. This would have been like late October of 2013 at a Pitt Notre Dame game out at Pitt. He was sitting like a row directly behind me. He was a Notre Dame fan. And,
oh,
we were just talking
jeez.
back and forth during the game. And then I just hooked up through Facebook there and stayed in contact. And then once I got on there, I said, hey, I got a dynasty in my college football group I set up, which has 500 or 600 people in it. And, he was one of the people along with Chris Barfield, Duke Blackman, don't call him Robert. Um, and, so these guys all were like, hey, yeah, I'm interested. Lee Cagle was another one of them. And so that's how we got a lot of these
Yeah.
guys in here through my college football group. And then his brother, James, came on board. Don't call him Jim or anything else either. So, that's kind of how that started there. And,
I might have
real
to.
interesting. Yeah, there you go. Do it. That'll add to the rivalry.
Yeah, because
So, Jen,
I have Texas A&M next week, and then I follow that with Missouri, so I go back to back. So I got
The
I got a rivalry going.
Jeremy Gauntlet.
Yep, I got a rivalry with them.
But
But it's all fun.
as you guys were saying earlier about like just the cool things that come from this online dynasty that you don't get from offline or exhibition. So I got that as a spectator too with this Colorado Utah game.
Right.
I was absolutely like fanboying over Tyler Boyd finishing off this upset, and I called it in the app lab that night. This is upset of the dynasty because like
Yep.
I was utterly shocked. Like this is a guy that's got 40, like trampled 45-0 to Zona,
And
and
Kansas.
yeah, or yeah, maybe it was Kansas,
Well,
but
both. It was both.
yeah, and he comes out in what many consider the best player in the dynasty, or one of the plus best players in the dynasty, and it was a absolutely a shocking result. And Nick, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that game.
Yeah.
okay, well, it was an incredible game, and I think Tyler Boyd has been hit and miss. He's either been like right there in a lot of these games. Like I remember he played DJ in a bowl game after season one, and he lost like 45-35 or something like that, and it was Virginia Tech versus Utah. And so anyway, uh, yeah, I think he looks great in some of these games. And other games, it's like, and you got to understand too, a lot of this is matchups with the teams, how players scheme. And then when you're following some of these games, sometimes I think people are paying pretty close attention to the styles that these people play, like the types of offenses, what they like to do, their tendencies. Like my thing is, when I get into these games, I try to take away the number one thing that the other person wants to do,
Right.
and that's cool is to force them to play how they don't want to play. And if they can do that successfully, they're going to beat me,
Yeah.
and I think like we see that with Tyler. Tyler just comes up and, he has that monumental upset. I actually lost the feed there for a while. I was out and I was watching the game and I watched like the first quarter and a half and he was down a little bit. I can't remember. It was like right before the half. He was down 12 to something. And then I turned on the game and he was up 15-12. And I'm like, holy cow, that just was an interesting shift, and he had the ball. So,
Yeah.
and it's at the 22, and it was a fantastic, fantastic upset. And that's the thing about playing. You got to play the games. I mean, we can try to stratify this into like tiers and stuff, but ultimately, you have to get your game, make your appointment to play your game. You play your game, and you just see where the chips fall, man. And sometimes it's like a lot of times too, it's the guys who take care of the ball, the guys that
Right.
make the least mistakes. The other guys, the risk takers, they can really blow you out of the water when they get up there, but they can also throw a bunch of turnovers and stuff and get the other person into the game. And sometimes the best strategy is to just sit back, and just wait to counter strike. And that's a
Right.
strategy in of itself. So
Well, I noticed a
Yeah,
lot.
great points.
Tyler was mashing his right bumper trying to get that user strip. I mean, he got two forced fumbles that game, and he ended it with the user strip. So, I mean, he forced prime in the turnovers, and that's something that he never really did throughout this dynasty was turn the ball over. I mean, I played him in the first year we played in the college football semifinal, and the only turnover in the game was my fumble, and that's why he won is because he held the ball and he took care of it. So with him out of the league, that's a Goliath, that someone has to fill in. So, there's definitely a big power void with with how that happened with him leaving, but I definitely think there's people here that are ready to take over that
I'll tell
top
you
dog.
this, just to touch on that real fast, the
Yeah,
whole situation. I know you probably touched on it with Ian
yeah,
yesterday. I didn't get to listen to it. I am going to go back and I will listen to it, by the way. But I just think like a lot of it was me because I was so laissez-faire with like how everything was going on. I just kind of like to let people do whatever they want to do, and that's just in my personality. And I kind of like that as leadership thing because you're not power tripping. You know what I mean? You're very level headed about it, and you want
right,
to give people their space and give them their character, like or whatever character they're portraying, and or they want to convey in the dynasty, which is fine. But at some point, it was just like, even with my scheduling thing, there were some people felt that was like a quandary. I felt like, ultimately it ended up looking pretty good at the end. I think, we have Michael Jeremita. I think like I kind of gave him too many games. He ended up with like 7, and that was an accident. the whole schedule reset on me is what happened. And by the time I had to kind of remember everything we did and then make alterations, because fitting those last half dozen games in at the end is much harder than you think. You have to get, like, there are only a couple of weeks. One person might have week 4 open, another person might have week 7 open, and then you can't flip, and there's protected rivalries, and you can go down the list. But Michael ended up with 7, and I also think Chris Barfield, who's Oklahoma, ended up with 7, and that was an accident too. And then Christian getting Texas, I forgot that I put that on there, and then I went forward and it was on there, and there was like no take back. But it worked out well for him, from that aspect. So in retrospect, it actually looked even better than it was coming out. And then with Prime, it was just like, I mean, it's okay to like disagree or have that, but it was just like he just kept on. You know what I mean? Like he just didn't let up at all, and it was
the dam broke pretty much.
Yeah, there's a time in it, and I wanted to keep him in, and I don't want to see anyone out of this. That's my whole thing. But I can understand why he was removed, and it was a good move, and it was my fault for protecting that and allowing it, and
I don't blame
that was
you for keeping him in. I mean, it's you don't want to see anyone leave, like you said. So, I think he definitely drew the line there with with coming at him with what he said and all that. But
yeah, and there were some shots there that like wasn't the first time. You know what I mean? That
no,
was
exactly.
Just the icing on the cake. You know what I mean?
Well, we can parlay that a little bit into McMahon quitting the league, and another person that we don't want to see leave is the reigning national champion. And
he'll be back. He'll be back. I think a lot of that is and that's understandable too. I mean, guys get frustrated. I mean, you invest your time and energy into this stuff. You know what I mean? And you have a great season. You had a dream season, and then that's the beauty about this whole thing is week to week and year to year, so much changes. And he lost the core nucleus of his guys, and that set him up for a rough year. We kind of accidentally overscheduled him, not even considering that. We were kind of looking more at like years and all that BS. And as I found out, a lot of it has to do with your player personnel, not even where you're ranked in the preseason. And, so we've seen a bit of that. And then, ultimately water just has a way of reaching level. And that's what's happened here. And I think he just got frustrated with it. And then when he lost the computer, that was like, that was the final straw.
Right.
But I think he'll be back. I do. I think come back. And I mean, it was not like he was booted. You know what I mean?
Right.
That was on.
Yeah.
That was on his own.
Yeah, we would love to have him back. I mean, we worked with him. He's absolutely one of my favorite people in the warehouse.
Yeah.
In the DC, and it's a great guy all around. And he's just busy right now, and I think we'll see him back.
Out of all this, he was he and Jason Bradley. I mean, out of all of us, were the first guys that have played together now. Played together in 1997 was Jason Bradley, Josh, and I, and we would have our own team. We did that for 2 or 3 summers in the late 90s. And, so Josh has been a great friend of mine. I've known him since he was about 12. So.
Yeah, he's a good guy. So Frank, I see you already skipped past the Big Ten. I see there weren't any user matchups.
Yeah. So I skipped that and just
the
best.
Honestly, Nick, could you just give us your impressions of how the Big Ten's going right now? What teams to look out for? What teams have surprised you, disappointed you? Yeah, okay. I just lay it all at your feet here. There aren't really any user matchups to go over.
Okay, and then I'll fire away. I think DJ got the guy who is Oregon. I don't know if that's Joel Schultz or who that is.
That is correct. Yep. Yep, that's correct.
That guy's really good. He's beaten some people. He beat Dan McConnell, otherwise known as Bake, who's a tremendous player at this game as well, really good with the sticks and everything. But looking at this here, I mean, Oregon's set up like they were last year. Washington's funny because that Matt Burke is usually the last person to finish his game. And it's probably, I'm guessing it's just his work schedule. He's like very hard to get a hold of. Like if you look at messages, he's one of the last people to get the messages and stuff. But he participates. He does miss a game here and there, where you sim it or whatever. Josh, I really think we're going to see him back. I think that was just an impulse thing. And he's too valuable, in my opinion, to the whole thing. Like he's, one of those guys. Even his personality, you really don't see on the band app because he doesn't say much, but he's really, a great guy. He's fun to be around. He's got a lot of cool insight. Um, and as I said, Dan McConnell's a great player. There he is, just pounding the computer as usual. And then you got Shaner, USC. He plays his games. I've kind of like grown fond of his style and stuff. I've watched his games and he has improved as the dynasty's gone on. In the Big Ten, I would say this. You guys got a lot of you don't have many members, but you got a lot of good players. And what I think is laughable is you got teams programs like Ohio State and Michigan that are just sitting there and nobody's taking them. That's just wild to me. But I know you could have lost recruiting classes with how some of these guys recruited or some of them gave up on things. And then you got Ricky, probably one of the most improved players in the dynasty. Ricky yourself right there. And, I watched you. You have Patrick Mahomes Jr. there, wannabe. He's flinging the ball all over the place, Dylan Raiola. And, yeah, you got a great style, man. You like to wing the ball. I remember you were an INT machine in season 1. And then we just saw you grow a bit in season 2, and you started to break out little bit of the shell. And then it looks like season 3 you hatched. You're like a serious contender now. You're somebody that I think a lot of people might not want to play, or even if they want to play, they know they've got a significant challenge in their hands. And I think a lot of this stuff is just getting used to you get acclimated with all the different amenities, for lack of a better term, or features that you can use on the controllers and stuff that I don't know. I mean, I'll be in the middle of a play, I'll forget what button to push and stuff. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. But I can scheme pretty well, and that's what keeps me in my games, my player personnel, and my schematics. And that's kind of how I set my thing up that way, because I knew I wasn't going to allocate a ton of time to actually getting better on the sticks and playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I like your breakdown of the Big Ten. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. I mean, I don't know if you're on time press there or not. I don't know what's going on here.
I think
you just let me out. I'm like a rabid dog. You just let me out.
Yeah,
right,
that's what we want. People listen to us every week. That's good.
No matter what we do, people like to listen to us, so it's fine. You can say whatever you want.
There you go.
So the one guy who is a bit of mystery is Georgia. Texas A&M's trying to play him, and I don't know if there's any update on Bradley there. That is
Jay's
Bradley,
been a
right?
Yep, Jason Bradley. He's been a lifelong friend of mine. I've known him since he was probably about 4 years old. And we grew up together and stuff. Jason, he loves the game. I'm shocked he actually joined, but it was like I asked him, and I thought he was going to be immediately no, and he was immediately yeah. He's like, how much is an Xbox? And he went out and got one, and so he got the game. He's really been practicing, offline and stuff. He's improved a lot, but there are just some guys on this, man, that if you can't figure out like what their style and what they're doing, they're just going to boat race you, and it's like, you have to be ready. Like I played DJ this year, man, when I tell you I was not ready for what he was ready to do to me, yeah, I wasn't ready. And I had beat him 2 years before in year 1. And I think he had a little bit of revenge on his mind. And that's why I said, out of my personal outlook on this dynasty is my rivalries are Ian and DJ right now. And I kind of feel that way. But this one, Jason's improved a lot. And then I think James is a real player on this. He's really good.
Yeah, I've had some struggles with him.
When I look at this game, it's like, James has got a really good roster. Jay has the best roster in season 3, but I just think James is so good at this. Like he's one of the, he's not upper, we talk about the tiers or whatever. He's in there, and it's when you got a tier 1 guy that's on the sticks. And I think we should just, when we do these stratifications and, where we categorize people, I think we should look at like subcategories where you have like guys that recruit, you have guys that develop players, you have guys with great player personnel, you have guys that are good on the sticks, you have guys that run different styles, guys that like to pass all the time, guys that like to run a lot, and sometimes those are tricky things. I've seen like Duke. He played Corey Rickens, who's Florida. Corey Rickens ran the ball all over him
Mm-hmm.
and upset Duke, and it was like it was good. But that's my point. Is like there's so many different styles, and that's what really makes this fun. And here in the SEC is always cool. It doesn't matter whether it's in real life or on this game. But I think Jay's got his hands full. He's going to have to play really well. Did see that Missouri and
Yep.
LSU game you have highlighted right there. Duke, heck of a player, but you got to give Michael credit. He made some more plays, and ultimately he was able to pull it out. Duke said he was going for a little bit of a different style in that game. He went with a different playbook. I can't remember which one he said he used. He talked to me privately. I talked to him on the phone. He calls me. We talk back and forth. We've been doing it for quite a while. But Duke said he used a different playbook and, seemed to be working for a little bit, but then wasn't quite what he wanted. But I don't think you can really fall back on that because ultimately you do have plays. You can make plays. And I just think that Michael got a big win for himself there, big boost.
Right.
Sort of glad for him because he was one of the two guys along with Chris Barfield that I felt like I accidentally gave like the shit end of the stick, so to
Well,
speak.
yeah, and you say that though, but he is 3-0 in the SEC conference, and he's in third place right now in the conference. And if things work out for him, he very well could see himself as a at-large seed in the playoff. If
Well, you know what's funny about that? I think it's that his brother dogs him so badly
yeah, it could
on the
knock him out.
right. His brother dogs him so badly that it makes Michael look worse than what he really is,
That's true.
And I think Mike's improved a lot too. He's an offensive guy. He's another guy. He's kind of like DJ where he's just really good with, passing the ball. I don't think he's quite to DJ's level. I haven't seen anyone in his dynasty. I think Ricky, you've improved a ton. You're one of the probably in the top 5 of passing the ball strictly. But I think I think DJ's just
Yeah,
ridiculous.
that's
He
definitely
comes,
fair.
yeah.
No, he's a really really good player. I did play Missouri earlier this year. It was he he is someone that with that whole off season shenanigans that people considered like one of the weaker players based off how he was being ranked in the tiers. Yeah, here we are mid year. He has a chance to win his way into the SEC championship game. He is probably the
Potentially.
most improved player in my opinion
And
in the whole dynasty. So
you know
he's
what's
been
funny
awesome.
about that? Am I speaking to Frank right now?
Whoever,
Nope.
I'm Frank talking right now. This is
Oh,
Frank.
okay. Yeah. So that's the funny part about all this is, I discussed with the commissioners meetings with like Ian and Nathan and Josh, and I said there's some merit to this tier stuff, but I said ultimately it comes down to like, with the fluctuation from year to year and the different styles week to week and games that you see, you have to play the games. And I'm like, really, the hard thing is when you have mountains of user games because that is a real chance to lose. You know what I mean? Anytime you play a user game, you can lose. And so some guys like Ian has 8 user games this year. 8.
Yeah, that's something that we
And
talked about a little bit when he was on yesterday.
but you know what? That's the team he picked. You know what I mean? By that
Right.
same token, you get the shit end of the stick. If you get like 6 ACC games and you're 8 and they're user games, I mean, you have to play them. There's no way around it. And that's where I played 6. I have 4 under my belt. I'm 3-1. I got 2 left. You guys, I know Frank, for you, it's been like because I think like you're a good player on the sticks, and I think for you, it's been a matter of like roster turnover, player personnel, stuff like
Correct.
that.
For this
You
season,
know,
it definitely has been rough.
and then Christian he had a big thing going, and then during that freaking forced sim that should never have had to happen, he lost his tailback, which I don't know for how long,
Right.
but he had a great QB running back tandem, and he looked dangerous as could be, and that's just it's interesting to see all that develop though. But year to year, it's like now here we are, Michael. Like you said, he's become a player, and that's a guy in the first year didn't look like it. In the second year,
Yeah.
now look at him, he's
Yeah.
there,
The
he's playing.
more user games you play, the better you get. I mean, that's just how it works. The more you
Yeah,
do
I
something, the
mean
better you get. So So
Yeah,
getting a
that's
tough
the whole
schedule.
thing with that whole controversy with the scheduling. Like I know I've said it to you, Nick. I've said it to other people. Like, you can bitch about the fairness aspect of the scheduling, and some guys definitely got a raw deal. But at the end of the day, you should take these as an opportunity that you're gonna get better. Like
Yeah.
if I haven't run the Big Ten Gauntlet where I'm playing these amazing users like Oregon, Iowa, it would not have made me the player I am right now because I've had to change my style. I've had to essentially like wait for the game to come to me rather than just try to pass. And without and then all these other user games, it's always just an opportunity to show you've gotten better, and it just changes so much year to year.
Is that you, Ricky?
That is me.
Okay, I wanted to tell you funny story about you. You when you played Barfield when he was up 7 right before the half. He told me when he missed that field goal, he was so pissed he threw his controller off the wall.
I don't doubt it.
And then like once you got the ball, the controller wasn't functioning properly. Couldn't get it, so they called their own play, and then you threw that bomb for a touchdown and got the 2 to go up by 1. And
Yep.
that's
Yep.
the other
Instead of
thing, man. In
That's
these games,
hilarious.
people, you like to anybody that's listening, that's a member of this, you have to keep your cool in these games because, like, if there's a mistake and you let it get you, you're gonna it's gonna snowball into something, you know, altogether different, and you're gonna get killed in a game where you could have been pretty competitive. You know what I mean? Or maybe even come back and won. You know, but it's
yeah,
keep it get together. You know what I mean?
yeah. That game in particular, he's actually I feel he's been my toughest user matchup thus far. I played, let me think here. Played Oklahoma, Missouri, USC, Washington, um, and he gave me my toughest battle. And I was actually staring down points down going into the second half. With that whole scenario, I was actually up 1. That's why I went for 2, so I could have that psychology factor going into the second half. And after that, that's where my team identity was able to come out. And I was just able to make my opponent feel like they had to score every time to keep up with me, and they made mistakes. But he's a really good player. Funny,
And
funny you mentioned that.
that's the truth. It's like, with him, his ability, he can equally run and pass the ball equally as well. And then he also is probably about average on defense, which doesn't sound like much. But when you couple a guy who can run and pass efficiently and can play decent defense, that's a recipe for a pretty good player. And that's a guy that a lot of people might, each time if you see him on your schedule, it's like, oh man, Barfield, he's pretty good, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
Well,
I think that was all the user games from
yeah.
this
No,
week.
yeah, I was thinking we could
Um,
break away a little bit from that and we can go into something that both you guys thoroughly enjoy and something that I've, gotten to like a lot more since, I've gotten into this and now this is a pretty rare opportunity where we have the number 1, the number 2 and the number 3 class currently all in one location at the same time. So
Would you look at that? Wow.
So Nick, I got a bone to pick with you because you and I seem to be going after a lot of the same guys. And I'm happy I stole that running back away from you. That for this season, I'm sure you remember him, that Everett running back. So I'll be happy to have him next season. But you know, I definitely got better with recruiting because of Ricky telling me all his tips and stuff. And, I would love to hear some of the hidden, tricks and secrets up your sleeve, you know,
Oh,
that could maybe
some of the
help.
nuances. Um, okay, I can kind of tell you what to do as far as almost under any circumstance, whether you're like a lower program, which most people aren't. We all took like pretty good programs. So that would kind of be irrelevant to the discussion here. Um, but I think a lot of it is you look at your needs, you look at the interest, 2 things, interest levels and pipeline.
yep,
So
pipelines.
those are places to start right there. And if you start there and you attack a position and you say you need 2 guys, you can attack a position and you can put 4 or 5 guys on your board, offer them, pick the ones you like the most, attack them with the most hours that you will allocate towards that prospect, and you kind of work from there. And you also know, like, I kind of gotten a little bit arrogant with it, like to the point where I had that receiver what was his name, Hurt, that you got,
Yep.
that Everett, that tailback that you got, who was my number one target on my board. And then there was Patrick Worthy, who was my original number one target. A quarterback, he was a 5-star gem.
Texas.
And he
Texas
ended
got
up
him.
going to Matt Glenn. And, you know, I might have to, yeah, but he ended up going to Matt Glenn. And that guy was off the board pretty early. But see, problem, I get story-eyed a little bit because I think I can get anybody. So what I do is I just go after whoever I want. Doesn't matter if they aren't even interested in me from the get. And usually I can get in on any prospect. And it was just that I was too far behind on some of these guys initially. And that was kind of a little bit of a learning curve for me, is you just can't get everybody you want. You know what I mean? Like some of these guys, if another user is recruiting them and they're higher to start, you have to know when to let up or when to let go.
Right.
So you don't put a bunch of points in and lose. Now I had 2 other quality tailbacks I could have gotten. I didn't get either one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need them. It was a luxury position for me. I just wanted to get the best one available, you know, like almost like a hood ornament. And that didn't work out for me. So, you know, and then some of these other guys did, though, as you can see right there. You know, I hit safety really hard. I hit safety very hard. And, you know, I ended up getting I believe the top safety, free safety and strong safety.
That is correct. Yep, you got both of them.
Yeah, and that was what I was looking for the most. I want guys who can cover that backfield with good excel and good speed. And that was what find Patrick Worthy in there. There you go, Bloom. Look at Texas, man.
Missouri was leading on him for the longest time this year.
Dude, Missouri's in a lot. You know, Michael's in for a lot of these guys,
it's that
man.
pipeline. It's that Southern pipeline.
Yeah.
I think it honestly is the best one in the dynasty, in my opinion. I mean, it might be biased, but that Florida and Mississippi and Georgia pipeline, I mean, that's where you want to be, in my opinion.
Alabama always has good prospects. It's just,
and that's why
all the
Nick
Carolinas.
and
So
I are always
you guys
battling.
are in the prime spot for them.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. It does matter. It does matter where your school's located relative to the hotbed. You know what I mean? There's my boy.
There he
Cortez.
is. Yeah, you battle with a lot of Big Ten schools and Texas as well. See, Texas, people love going to Texas.
Oregon killed me, man.
He
killed me. Like, my offensive line, my 2 top offensive line recruits, I was going the whole way to like Seattle, Washington for 1. And then I had another guy that I thought was a sleeper, and I didn't attack him with many points, and he's on me, ended up with him, and I'm like, you know.
Yeah, you're in with this wide receiver too, Ian, in Texas as well. I mean,
I barely got him over those guys. Barely.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I thought you were going to get that running back because you jumped ahead of me there because you had that visit. And I was kind of shocked, honestly, when I logged in after the advance and saw that I got him. So I was definitely like to see what happened there behind closed doors, but I'm happy he came to the
Sometimes, you know what I think it is, Frank? Sometimes what I think it is how you perform at that position in the game when they visit. As dumb as that sounds. Like, if you would tailback and you get 200 yards rushing with that tailback there, now, is your tailback a freshman or is your tailback a junior or senior? They could be leaving, you know? And I think that does play a role. I think that's built into this game. I think it's that elaborate. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is. And
yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I'll have a tutorial a little bit. Like Frank and I are gonna go over an hour about like the do's and don'ts. There's definitely stuff that helps me, because you touched on it earlier, Nick. Like, the reason why I like having this segment on here today is recruiting is so important. When I started Nebraska year 1, I had a lot of 80 speed guys that were my starters, and now here in year 3, that's why I feel like my defense is now up to par. Is now I have a lot of these 90 guys I recruit too, and now you're starting to see the fruits of it in year 3. So like I would like to, show some of these other users, how to be more competitive in these moments, because there's definitely a lot of nuances that go into this from week to week, and it's not a surprise that you're in year 3 here, Nick, that you're hitting your at the top of your game. And like look at you, Frank. Year 1, you really didn't touch recruiting. Now you're sort of seeing it hit you in year 3. It's just amazing how it affects from year 1 to year 3.
I have never had a 5-star recruit until this one, so I'm I'm excited to get some studs.
Yeah, like go back to the overall like ranking set of the prospects. Go by team here. Um, like it's look at some of these top users. Virginia Tech, they've had like probably top 10 recruiting classes every year. Oregon was top 10 last year. Florida State's always there. Texas is always top 5 due to the transfer portal. McMahon and Penn State, they've been top 10. Like the top users in year 3, all you have to just
Conspicuously
look back
absent.
is the recruiting boards.
Yeah, conspicuously absent there, I think, is Notre Dame. They're usually
Right.
up there. Nathan's usually up there. Where's
Yeah,
he
the
at?
same thing with
Funny.
Iowa. Iowa always has like they're nowhere in the top 50.
Oops.
I don't think they attack these recruiting classes that
I
hard,
didn't even know.
and
I didn't even know
you
you can
know,
click
and
on them like this.
Didn't you know
yeah.
that?
Oh my God.
Well, there you go.
Oh, here. Wow. Well, here you
Yeah.
go. Learn something new every day.
Yeah, the only problem with this screen is it shows every player as a field general.
Field
I hate that,
general.
Right.
but it is what it is.
Yeah. Why does that happen?
It's just one
It's
of those
just
things
EA.
that,
That's
yeah,
funny.
one of those probably those algorithmic defects that they have, in the
Yeah.
game. Switch one thing and it programs it to switch everything else. But
Yeah, I see you basically attack your skill position players this year, which is good because looking at your team this year, Frank, you're gonna need them.
I don't have any.
You are, I think, at a speed mismatch every week in the SEC.
Pretty much.
can I
Yeah.
say something real quick too about this recruiting here, real fast?
Yeah.
Um, you know, people think that these freshmen are going to play right away, and they're not. Like the vast majority of the time, depending on how good your team is,
Nope.
And I think too, especially when you recruit like linemen or quarterbacks, like some of those freshman quarterbacks, they're atrocious. It doesn't matter like how good their rating is. Like they just throw the ball like it's nowhere even near the receiver. You know what I mean? Which is kind of cool. It makes the game fun, and that's because it's realistic. You don't often see like true freshman or even redshirt freshman quarterback come in and light the road on fire. Offensive line and defensive linemen do need to develop like strength physically, and that actually is reflective on the game. You're more than likely going to be able to see a tailback, potentially a wide out, or maybe some defensive backs that you can play early. But
Yep.
for most of the other positions, you can't play them early, no matter how good they are.
Yeah, no, it's I love that aspect. All because you got this 5-star quarterback does not mean he should be your starter. Like that 5-star quarterback I got, I'm hoping Raiola stays for a senior year. But if not, I actually have someone on my roster that I'm looking into first. It's a 3-star gem that I got from year 1. Year 2, he's a redshirt freshman now, or no, redshirt sophomore now. But I'm hoping that in this time next year, he's maybe in that 80 overall range, where I'm not actually going to be looking into
So,
my 5-star. What's his name? Cole Sharp. Yeah.
so one thing I actually just learned is, and not really learned, but kind of just realized is, even if you redshirt a guy, they could leave technically sophomore redshirt after that sophomore redshirt season. So redshirting a guy is honestly still a risk as well.
It
I mean,
is.
they still get eligibility. Like they're still counting
Right,
towards their
but
eligibility towards the
but they
draft.
could
So
theoretically leave if they wanted to, and like that's a risk you kind of have to take. But hopefully they will stay. But
Don't
yeah,
forget this, guys. This is a critical component not to be dismissed or overlooked. Is how far are we actually going to get into this thing?
exactly.
We might get through 5 full years and then have a month and a half off, like June, July. So if we go through May, we're probably going to have 5 full seasons in. And at this point, redshirting guys, for me, I didn't do it. I didn't redshirt like other than guys that are juniors or seniors that can play like years 4 and 5, maybe even into year 6. Those guys are redshirted. But the freshmen I just got in this past class, I didn't redshirt a single one of them.
Hmm.
yeah, it's almost no point. Not with
Yeah.
the amount of time until the next game
Game
comes
plan.
out.
Yeah.
But but still, I mean, you still have to prioritize now because I said you might still be able to get some starters or like what I've used with recruiting. Year 2, I was able to get some power backs to help my goal line packaging because I was absolutely awful in those positions. Well, now I feel pretty confident in the I recruited the right guys.
Another thing I think I could say to help people if we're, as you guys had said, like if I'm like looking to give some kernels of advice, um, I'd have to say how you allocate your hours. I mean, that's a ton of it. That's like 60% of it. Um, like I said, knowing when to give up on a prospect or when to, but you have to know, you have to know when to switch from like influence to then you're selling them on the
Yep.
pitches. You have to know when to get your official visits. Sometimes it's not beneficial to schedule a game that you might lose. You know what I mean? For a prospect, because you could lose a little bit of influence with that loss and get jumped by somebody else. So there's a strategic element as to when you schedule the visits. The visits are just as important as the hard sell once you figure it out. And you got to know when to go hard sell, soft sell, or when to sway. You know, you can sway when somebody has 2 out of 3 that they're those pitches that they like that your program offers. And then a third one is like really low rated, like it's a D. You know what I mean? And then you can basically, if you can find another pitch that'll have 2 of the ones that you're like an A and a B on, then if you can flip them to get one that you're a B on or an A or even a C up from like a D, that makes a lot of difference. And then once you sway them, then you can continually sell them on the hard sell pitch after the first sway. And so that's an important component is when you know when you stop putting the influence points on, when you start doing soft and hard sells. You also should know which guys, depending on how many guys you're recruiting on your board, that you're actively recruiting that just aren't on your board, but you're recruiting them. You have to know when you can do the hard and soft sell because you might need to do soft sells with certain guys because you just don't have enough hours. You have to know
Yep.
exactly who your top dogs are, where you stand with them. Is it realistic for you to land them? And then that's how you determine where you allocate the rest of your hours for your recruiting with your hard and soft sell, those types of things, and just knowing when to sway, you know. And then I think pipeline is a hidden thing that's more important than people realize. And, their level of interest when you start recruiting them. Sometimes if you're not the best recruiter, it might not make sense to go after a guy that even you think he's ideal. He has no initial interest in you, you know, like you're just going to be wasting recruiting hours. You're probably not going to get that prospect.
Missing out on the guys you could have had.
That's right. And you're going to
Because
lose the
those
guy.
60 points went to the guy you thought you really, really wanted, and there you go. Now you just wasted 120 points because it wasn't the way it was
Yeah, and you're
supposed to be.
chasing the 5-star, and you could have got the 4-star for like like 2/3 the hours, right? I mean, that's going to do what? Elevate your entire recruiting class, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have a nuanced video later. I mean, I'd love for you to, watch it, give your tips off that. But
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna try to make a nuanced video for everyone later on today
Ricky's a
Yeah.
with
content
recruiting.
creator now, so he needs to put on his boots and start pumping out content.
um, I mean, no, I think pretty much that sets up recruiting what
Yeah.
we've seen.
Let's
And
just
then
want to do the
let's look into
pickums.
these week 9, week 10 games. And, I can't wait to
Yeah.
get over the week 10 games, but week 9
Yeah.
first.
So we'll just do this real quick. We'll do like a little rapid fire. I have a little note thing here on my phone. I'll try to, keep track of who we pick and all that. But we'll start here. Georgia Tech, Pitt. I'm taking Pitt.
I got Pitt. I think it's really ballsy that Lee Cagle, lives down in Georgia, and from my college football group, picked Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. But they were one of the lowest rated teams. They won't be on next year's version of the game. He's just behind the 8 ball, and it's very unfortunate. Pitt's going to win that game.
Yep. Ricky.
Yeah, I got Pitt in this one. I just haven't seen enough from Georgia Tech and Lee. But let me just say, I mean, I love that he was willing to put himself in that position because I'm not sure a lot of guys would invest the time done and still get the results that he's gotten
And he
and
plays this game every
still
week.
stay invested. He plays every game. He's awesome. I appreciate players like that more than
Yep.
we give him credit for.
So here we'll move on. Louisville, North Carolina. This is a fun one in my eyes because I think North Carolina will win. So I'm going to take the Tar Heels in this. But Louisville, they're either going to put up 45 points or they're going to put up 10. I think North Carolina's consistency is the reason why they're going to win.
Um, I'm going to touch on that. I got North Carolina as well. I think Casey's very good as Louisville is passing the ball. That's his bread and butter. I think, he can improve on other components of his game, but I think that's it. And then, like you said, I think Zach is really well rounded. An interesting point on these guys, I believe these are both Patton guys from Frank's
Oh,
old
I'm a
neck.
Patton boy. I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Well, these guys, how they got into the dynasty was I met Nick Gilbert, who was now Pitt. His eyes lit up when he heard Pitt was open. I was telling him about the dynasty. They were tailgating right next to us, him and Zach Styles. And those two, I asked them, they're pretty young. They're like 22, 21, 23. I'm like, where are you guys from? Patton. It was the Pitt, West Virginia game. And they were both Pitt boys. And they were like, oh, yeah, we're super interested. And so I added them. And then they added Casey. And Casey then came in, and I think he's just like them. Like they're all just good young guys. And then they got, I believe, the young guy who just maybe Alex
NC
Baker.
State.
And NC
Yeah.
State, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're all I think they took the ACC because they liked the teams, and I think they wanted to play each other.
And
You know what I
NC
mean?
State
Like,
user, we won't touch on it a lot, but he's pretty good. I think he flies under the radar.
I heard that Ian was like, I should have lost that game. He told me about
Oh
it.
yeah.
He was
So
down 10 in the fourth quarter. He
so who
should
you
have
taking here,
100%
Nick?
lost it.
Who are you taking? Louisville.
I got North Carolina, and I want to say this before we advance past the ACC.
Yeah.
I might lose that game to Syracuse. It's on the road, and they're like an 87 rating.
Well,
Just to throw it.
yeah. I mean,
Well,
computer games, as we know, after we bumped the sliders up, no joke. You gotta take them seriously. So
like I will say with the sliders, like I feel like if you are very comfortable passing the ball and you don't throw interceptions, you're going to have an easy time against computers. There's some guys in here that prefer to run the ball, and that's fine. But when you're put in positions where you have to pass against a computer, I think that's where you sort of have some people struggle. So, but with that said, I think I'm actually going to take Louisville in this game. North Carolina's been impressive though this year. They're a little bit inconsistent because like North Carolina is actually head and toe with Notre Dame for 3.5 quarters, and then I think they lost their last user game by a pretty decent amount. And I know Casey is a really good player. He's very respectful. I think his drawback is sometimes his roster. So I think this would be a great back and forth battle though, and sort of just someone that hopefully could win this game and then propels them to getting their season turned around.
all right. So
yeah, I got North Carolina there. I'm going with the home. That's it. Yeah.
So we'll go Big 12 here, since they're next here on the line. So the only game in this is Zona and West Virginia. We work with West Virginia, the new West Virginia branded. We said it before. He throws a lot of pick sixes, but other than that, like he's not bad at the game. But regardless, Arizona knows what they're doing. I'm taking the Wildcats.
Well, that's apropos. His last name is not, and Brandon is not good at passing the football.
Correct.
But he can run, obviously. So I just think Christian's really good. And everything I've seen, he's up there. He's really good on the sticks. I think losing his tailback, that's kind of what cut him out from competing for a national championship. He still may, but if I had to say the one hang up for him is when he lost that tailback, I think he was right there. And some of those programs like in Arizona where he's just getting some good recruits and he didn't have quite a whole lot of them earlier in the dynasty because he had to build that. When you lose some of those key players, you don't have a guy right behind him that's even close to as good. So but I'm going to go with Arizona now when I think Arizona is tough. And also on that last screen, we had Colorado and Penn State, which was supposed to be an all-out war, and oddly enough, neither one of them are in the dynasty right now.
Computer, yep.
Yep, 100%. My pick for Arizona and West Virginia, I think I'm going to pick Arizona, but I think this game's going to be a lot closer than people think. Brandon's actually, if Brandon limits the interceptions, I think this is going to be a 4 quarters game and anything can happen.
Yep.
I love
And what
that
I've seen,
evaluation. I love that.
and I've seen, and I've seen Arizona this year. Like obviously against Penn State, they were running the ball up on McMahon first half, but as soon as McMahon was able to take that away, I didn't see a lot in the passing game. I think there's a lot more that where he can develop and you know nuances he can pick up on to really become that national championship contender. But I think it's something that could keep West Virginia in this game if he stops the run. And then, like I said, anything can happen. I still think Arizona's going to win because the other flip side of that is, these user matchups. I think part of it is getting experience in the user games,
Hmm.
and I don't think Brian's gotten that yet.
Yeah, he's still
And
looking
so,
for his first user win.
so there's a kind of there's a skill set with playing user games, as weird as that sounds.
No.
And I just think Brandon's a little bit behind on that too.
Yep.
There is, and that's a great point. And I'm going to go with Arizona, just kind of just what I've seen out of Christian. I think I just think he's really good. I think he's gotten so much better as the last couple of years. I mean, he beat King in year one, if anybody remembers that,
Yeah.
like 35-28. It was, I believe, at Arizona. And
Oh no, he's a spectacular user. I mean, he's when I nitpick these top end guys, it's literally just that. You have to find something small because
yes,
I appreciate all their skill levels. A lot of these guys are a hell of a lot better than.
you could.
Um,
He was investing time. You know what I mean, and time into like actually playing like outside of the dynasty and getting better.
yeah,
And you can see people like me who just scheme.
no, Arizona is a bona fide championship contender with or without that back. I'm not sure if he's back or not, but I think he's a problem for anyone on his. You never want to be scheduled against Arizona.
Nope.
All
All right.
I got Arizona
So
in that one too. I do
we'll
have
stop
Arizona.
glazing. We'll stop glazing Arizona here, and we'll we'll move on to SEC, my neck of the woods. I think the better matchup is actually Alabama Texas this week, or next week, than me versus A&M because of Alabama this year is on a different level. You know, he's scoring points every game. He's stopping people on defense. He's got a lot of speed on the back end. I think Alabama here will beat Texas. I think Texas knows how to play good offense, but defense is one of his weaker parts of his game. If I have to nitpick him, because he did beat me at all, and all credit to him, he played a great game. But I think Alabama's offense will be too much for Texas's defense in this game, so I'm taking Bama.
Absolutely huge game. This is like gonna be one that is going to shape not just the SEC, but I think it's going to shape the CFP. And I think Ricky's got his improved, and I think he's got his best team yet. Matt was in a national title game last year. He took some early licks, but they were mostly very close games, other than when DJ just went into Austin and laid it on him, man. Just put the smackdown, avenging that semifinal loss from CFP in season 2. And, and DJ's a man on a mission. And I think like this game right here, this game's huge. I'm really excited to see this. I hope it gets scheduled and there are no quirks here. And
Right.
We get to see a great game because I think this is going to be going to go in this game. I think Glenn's really good. And I think Glenn's got a tremendous roster. I think he's lost some guys from last year. But I think it's going to come down to the wire. I'm going to flip a coin here. I'm just going to go with Ricky. I think it's his year. I think Ricky might win the SEC. I'm going to go with Ricky.
Okay.
Alabama.
Oh.
What about my Ricky? How about our Ricky?
All right. So I mean, this, like you said, Nick, this is playoff implications, and that's why I'm gonna go with my pick. Um, Glenn needs this game. Alabama can lose this one and still make themselves in the SEC championship, or at worst, an at-large bid for the CFP. They have a good resume. They had a good non-conference win against another playoff team, Florida State. So I'm gonna take Matt Glenn and the Longhorns with this one, just because I think there's an extra motivation that he, and I think he knows that because you can't go into week 10 5-4,
Right.
and losing this one will pretty much eliminate himself from both races. So I'm gonna go with the Longhorns.
Okay.
Well, And on that note, I hope that Texas wins because I don't want him to quit the dynasty like Josh did. It's a joke. I'm kidding.
Oh boy. And what's
I
funny is
know.
Glenn will hear that and he will say something.
Oh, that's great. You know what he's gonna do? He's gonna laugh. That's
Yeah,
what he's
no,
going
for
to
sure. All right, so I won't pick for this, but I'll let you guys talk for A&M and Ole Miss.
Um, yeah, I guess I'll start with this one. So this this is probably the toughest matchup because I don't feel like there's been a lot of user matchups with A&M thus far. I think they sort of have it more on the tail end, so I've been able to see them too often. And they played Washington, but I know there was like some connection issues with there. So I think I'm gonna go with A&M just based on what I've seen from Ole Miss. No offense, Frank.
No, that's
I know you're still trying to figure out your identity in this year 3 team where you've lost a lot of your key players. Um, I just think, you know, you guys are both very good users. I go with tier 1 stick users. I will just go with the Aggies
yeah.
based off of what I've seen this year.
And before you make your picnic, I'll just say this: every year, and this is the third year, we all know that, but we've had the same overall team for the last 3 seasons. So our teams match up really evenly. Like I took a look at our depth charts, and we have guys with like the same speed at like the same positions. So every time we play, it's always like fairly matched. So that's all I
Interesting.
got.
Who won the worst 2 games between you guys?
So I won in the playoffs and the SEC championship game against him once. I don't think he's beaten. Has he beaten me once? See, I can't remember. I play so many games, I can't remember all of them that we play. But I know I beat him in the
Like,
SEC championship game. He
I
might
feel
have
like your
beaten me
record
once.
against A&M is really good. Then if he Texas,
Texas is my arch enemy in the SEC. I hate the Longhorns, but I like Matt Glenn, so it sucks. But yeah, go
That's
ahead,
cool.
Vic.
All right. Well, this one here, it's kind of what you two had already touched upon. Evenly matched with the sticks, evenly matched with the roster personnel. You got the home edge to Ole Miss.
Which is
Um,
huge.
and I think like you both have been like CFP guys, like you've been in there. You made to the semifinal the one year, right? You lost
First
to
season for us to Aaron, yeah.
Schlock, right?
Yeah, lost to that Colorado.
Yeah, right. So I'll tell you, this is another coin toss game, just momentum based. I'm gonna say Texas A&M is gonna beat you, Frank. I think
Okay.
James just on. I'm going on momentum.
Yeah.
That's really what I'm because everything kind of looks straight up even here. But I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all if you won. It would just be. I'm
I
saying it's like 51-49.
last
I'm getting.
last thing I'll say, and I don't know if I'm gonna put up that many points. But last thing I'll say is A&M's only
Oh no,
loss
no,
is
no!
to
I
a
don't mean that. I mean, I was saying 51-49 in terms of like
no, you're
the
good.
odds who I'm picking.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I mean?
good. I
that
was
makes
just
sense.
making no,
Not
you're good.
points.
Because I was gonna say 51 for me, that's wild. But
Yeah,
Texas A&M's only loss is to a computer, so I just want to, make everyone aware that he
Tennessee.
did lose to a computer.
He lost to Tennessee, right?
Yeah, I know, and that's fine. Tennessee's
One of the
hard.
toughest computers you can play.
I just like
100%.
They
messing
have,
with them.
they have that Holderman wide receiver. He's a 6'4" white guy from North Carolina. They beat me out for him in season 1. So he's got 96
Uh,
speed, 6'4",
so
threat.
all
Tennessee.
all 3 of my non-conference games were against the SEC, and I had Tennessee as my. They would just do 4 verts, and their receiver would be wide open, and they got like 5 touchdowns, 400 yards on it. So like
Wow.
that, their speed on the outside is ridiculous. So I'm still surprised no one's has picked them even more so than I am than a Michigan, Ohio State, because they have players at skill positions. It's insane.
They beat me out for a couple of them, I know. Year
Yeah,
1.
like they have a great recruiting pipeline too. But yeah, I mean
That's
this all
another team I'm
going
not
back
sure
to
nobody's taken. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
nobody's taking Tennessee.
yeah, I can't believe that.
Well,
Like
there could be
when
some
Brandon was
fault.
trying to join, I told
Yeah,
him to
I
take
know.
Tennessee. I
Who?
told Brandon to take Tennessee, not West Virginia. But yeah,
The
it's
the
what it is.
reason why he took West Virginia was my fault, People can say what they want. Oh, you're afraid to play him. Oh, that's not true. All I was saying was him to pick a team in the Big 12 just because of how many teams were already in the SEC, and it just felt like if you add another user, it's just, I felt like it's just a power struggle even more.
Well, we
Whereas
got to
like,
get guys recruiting out there, buddy. We got 3 openings now.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I mean is like it would just be nice if, the people who would come in, would go to conferences with less people. But then again, like, their talent on that roster might be down compared to a team, in the
Mm,
SEC compared to like a lower level, Big 12 or ACC. But
right.
but
Our
like that's a
ACC's
hard thing.
loaded.
Right.
Yeah, he's loaded. I mean, we got 9 users plus Notre Dame plays most of their schedule against the ACC.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
10.
And
You
now
know.
the Big Ten's down to what, 5?
So
Yeah, I think we'll see Josh come back. That's just
Yeah,
my.
I think so. I just think he's really busy right now, and maybe in like a month or two, when like season 4 starts up, maybe then.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
we can
don't
convince
know
him
if
that.
it'll take that long. I don't know if it'll take that long.
Yeah. But Frank, I mean, this is a must.
right.
You're done for in both
Yeah.
regards.
Yep. So here
So
let's just
must
try
win.
to we'll go a little bit rapid fire here. Just try to. This is already a longer video, so we'll try to rein it in a little bit. So we'll go back to the ACC for Week 10. We got a lot of matchups this week. FSU, Miami. I'm going Ian with the Seminoles.
Ian, I'm going to go with Ian, even though Bobby's tough. Bobby's really changed his style of play over the last couple of weeks. He's going heavily defensive, but yeah, I'm going to say it's at Miami. I'm just going to go with Ian.
Yeah.
He's like a little more consistent. He doesn't turn over the ball as much.
Ricky?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually a toss-up for me. I think both these guys are, susceptible to interceptions in untimely manners. So I'm gonna go with the upset because I don't normally do it. I'm gonna go with Miami.
Well,
But
been the only
Ian
oddball here
on
so
paper
far,
should win this.
Ricky. You've been the
Say
only
that
one.
again.
You've been the only one to keep all these from being a sweep. You've been the
Well, I'm glad.
yeah. So here, let me
I'm gonna
see.
go Miami.
Miami, Ricky. Okay. So next game would be you, Nick, versus Lee. And I'm gonna go Clemson. I'm gonna take you there. And that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead,
I'll
Nick.
refrain from picking my own game.
No, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I figured I'd go. I'm gonna take Clemson. I don't think it's gonna be particularly close.
Yeah.
Just I like what you're doing in Death Valley there, and Georgia Tech just has a uphill climb, unfortunately, with the roster.
Mhm. All right. So we'll keep moving here. NC State versus Pitt. I don't get a chance. Like I haven't gotten a chance to watch the NC State user that much, but I've seen the box scores. I've seen everything he's doing. I've seen Pitt play. I know what he's about. I'm gonna go with
NC State Louisville.
I'm gonna. Huh? Oh wait, what is
It's
it?
NC State
Oh,
Louisville.
my bad. I
It's
meant North
Louisville, NC
Carolina.
State,
I meant North
and
Carolina
North
versus
Carolina.
Pitt. My fault. North
Okay,
Carolina and
okay.
Pitt. I'm gonna go with North Carolina again. And for Louisville and NC State, I'm taking NC State. So sorry about the mix up there.
Oh, good. I'm going to go with the Louisville at NC State game. I kind of liked what I saw with NC State against Florida State on the road. And I'm just going to base off of that. I'm going to give the edge to NC State. I think NC State's going to win that game. I do like Casey's style, though. He's pretty good. I've seen him put up some points on people. Like you said, it's either 45 or 10 and kind of nothing in between with him. And, if he gets one of those 45 games, it's going to be, it sounds like we have another person there to pick, right? So
yes, we do.
And then this North Carolina at Pitt game, which in real life has become a little more of a rivalry. I'm going to didn't exist prior to their joining the ACC. I just think roster personnel is going to be the difference in that one. It's at Pitt, but I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with UNC.
Okay.
In a close game.
Ricky?
If I recall from last year, Pitt actually upset North Carolina when North Carolina was ranked late in the year. So this might be a revenge game for North Carolina. So I'm going to take the Tar Heels. And also, I just feel like Pitt turns over the ball far too much for my liking to be confidently picking them. And then Louisville, NC State. I think NC State's going to get their first signature user, but I like this game a lot too. I've played Louisville, very good at passing, but I think NC State.
Okay, so we keep moving here. Let's see. We got nothing in the Big 12. So, right? Yep, nothing there. Big 10, Ricky. Oh boy, probably the
Oh
game of the
boy.
week.
So
Um,
yeah, I'll let you guys go. I'll just give my key kind of deal
yeah.
on this guy.
So Ricky, you've played Oregon before, correct?
Yes, we played last year, and it was actually probably my best game.
And you won?
I lost on a 2-point conversion attempt that failed.
Right. Okay, I remember that game now. Yeah, you guys are pretty evenly
Yep.
matched.
Yeah, we were pretty even. I left some points on the board in the fourth quarter. Regretted going back, but I let him score a touchdown so I can get the ball back rather than him having a chip shot field goal. And I scored within 40 seconds, probably 10 seconds left on the game clock, and I went for two and just didn't get it.
Gotcha.
So
Well,
it was even last year.
I know you didn't have any faith in me for my game, but I have complete faith in you, Rick, in beating Oregon. So I'm gonna take you to beat the Ducks at Eugene.
Well, I have no faith in you. No, just kidding. Um, here's where I'm going with this. I think both are really good users. You're both up there. You're both good on sticks. Uh, it's the home team. It's Eugene. I'm gonna go with the Ducks. Close game. Ducks.
No, I think that's very fair. I mean, another contender that's sort of just flying under the radar. It's the Oregon Ducks. It's they're not they're never in the headlines. I don't think they've had a lot of users so far this year, and that might be one reason why. But he beat who I consider the best defensive player in the entire dynasty, and Bake. And he's very good in these fourth quarter moments. But what's gonna come down to is just simply who makes fewer turnovers, fewer errors, like he did last year. So I like my chances just in terms of the crowd not being that much of a factor. I'm not a hot route guy. I sort of just pick plays, and I know those plays by heart. I know what receivers are what. So I like that. Doesn't really bother me. It's more so the field goal kicking. Hopefully, I can get that down.
How many road dogs you got on that team of yours there, Ricky?
That's a good question. I don't know that on the top of my head.
You might be able to get me to switch my pick if you can tell me that you have at least a dozen that are starting the road dog.
Probably not. Probably not that many. So we'll just
gonna have
with
a
the Ducks, I'm
challenge.
good with that.
That's what I want to just briefly touch here. Notre Dame versus Tennessee. It's
home field and Jeremiah Law's going to be the difference right there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He should take care of them. I mean, I don't have any doubt in that. But Tennessee. Who knows? You turn the ball over, you fumble, and then they hit you with the 4 verts, and what? Then what? So just gotta be careful in those CPU games. The SEC is pretty loaded in Week 10. There's what 3? Well, not pretty loaded. I guess there's only 3 matchups, but they're pretty heavy ones. A&M and Bama. Did we talk? We didn't talk about them, did we?
No, we talked about
A&M and Bama. Yep, Florida, Georgia, and then myself again versus the other Jeremita. So, I guess we'll start with Bama and A&M. Let's see. I know what I get out of A&M. I play Bama actually in week 11. Funny enough, but just from what I've seen out of Rick Saban this year, I'm going Roll Tide.
I think Alabama. They got this is back-to-back road games in Texas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's not even going to board a plane. He might as well just bus him over from Austin to, Eastern Central Texas there and get his players ready. He doesn't even need to go back to Alabama. But anyway, this game right here, I think this is going to be the one where Ricky's going to have a big win this week. I think he's going to turn around another road game in Texas and College Station. And I think the Aggies just find a way in this one. I do.
Ricky?
I'm gonna take Bama in this one, just based off the fact that I said that they would lose the week prior. I don't see them going 0-2 in these next two games. I think if they do lose the early one, they're gonna come back with a vengeance. And unfortunately for A&M, that means them.
So this is a little fun one, little Florida Georgia line. They play every year. I think Florida's won the matchup every year so far, so I'm gonna take the Gators again in that one.
I've got Georgia. I think Jason proved. Uh, I know that Corey Rickens beat him in year one. Very close game, low scoring in the low 20s. I think it was like a 24-20 game or something like that. I don't know what happened last year, but I'm going to go with Georgia Bulldogs there. And it looks like that's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party there in Jacksonville. I think if you go up to the game, it might tell you where it's Jacksonville. So, yeah, it's a neutral site. I'm going to go with the Bulldogs. They got a lot of roster talent. So Jay's a user. So is Corey, but I got Jay in this one. Close game. Good game.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take Georgia in this one as well, just because there's 90 speed guys available to them across the board. And Florida might have his set sight on a different team. So I'm just going to say Georgia's more committed and Bulldogs.
Okay, so this will bring us to our last game. Save the best for last. Myself, and Missouri. So what you guys thinking there?
Well, I'm
obviously kidding. I know I'm not the best. Okay.
Well, I got in this game here. I think I'm gonna go with you over Jermita on his home field. I just think that with the way, he's having a nice SEC season in a way. I just almost want Frank to take as many losses this year as he can so he can come back here and let some of these new guys get a little new blood there into the CFP, maybe get the very embattled Michael Jeremita into the CFP this year. So, but no, joking aside, I think you're going to win, Frank. I do.
Okay. Ricky?
This one's going to go either way, I think. I think the game's actually, as weird as this statement sounds, I think the winner, whoever wins the first quarter wins the game. Let me tell you why. Missouri will exclusively just pass the ball. That's just who they are. It's what gives them success. But if Frank's able to get some stops, force some turnover on downs or turnovers, your run game's going to take over in quarters 2 through 4. With that said, if he does get those games, you do not have the passing game. So I will take the Rebels in this one, though.
Oh, what a turn! I was not thinking you were taking the Land Sharks there. Wow.
The Rebel yell.
But all right, that will wrap up the Week 10 picks. We got a lot of games coming up in the next couple of weeks. All good games too, so it'll definitely be exciting. And I'll be keeping track of our picks, and I'll post them in the band app once once all the games get finalized, and we'll see who did the best out of the three of us. So
yeah, and then after Week 10, I think the playoff picture is a little bit more clear.
Yeah.
Then we could maybe next week on Frank, you and I can sort of look ahead to. There will definitely be some playoff rankings out.
Yeah.
There will be, and then we'll just be able to see of all those playoff teams what their remaining schedules are like, and maybe make some predictions on that too.
For sure. Yeah, definitely excited for the rest of the season ahead. Well, Nick, you got any last thoughts? Anything you want to get off your chest here before we wrap it up?
Well, I think we did hit it. I think like at some point in the season, whether it's after the CFP or prior to the CFP, the three of us should do a recruiting special.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And where we just exclusively talk about recruiting.
Yeah, and I'll just be the guy that sits on the computer and listens. So.
Some of it is, fortunes go your way or whatever, But I wanted to say, this is great. It's awesome that you guys do this. I'm very appreciative. It just only adds to the whole thing. And you just got to think of a fancy name for your show.
This is the Middle Age Football Podcast.
Middle age, dude. You
Yeah.
guys aren't even close to middle age yet.
No, but we figured the average of everyone's ages is probably around
I'm bringing
30,
I'm bringing
40.
the average up, boys. I'm bringing
Bringing
that.
us up here, Nick.
So, I just felt it was a good name for it. But
Got the arthritis in my hands there. Third
yep.
quarter, sometimes I get a little fatigued, you know. So you
Keys
notice
to the
I
game,
stick on the
arthritis.
defensive
Getting
line.
in, getting in fourth.
I just recruit good D linemen and I just try to beat the guy off the ball. I don't want to. Once in that third quarter, my thumbs are shot. But
Definitely.
no, yeah, this is great, guys. I hope you keep it up. I hope we're past all the controversies. With all the just the kind of the infighting back and forth, if that's what you want to call it, for lack of a better term. Um, my whole objective now is I hope that everybody can kind of be friends.
Well, it seems like I lost connection here. Well, never mind, I came back.
All right,
I was
good.
gonna say it seems like it's a great time here. So,
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
this was great. Thanks for being on, Nick.
Yeah, this is
I'm sure
awesome.
everyone's going to appreciate your insight.
Hey, boys, thanks for having me, and we'll do it again sometime. All right.
For sure.